Welcome, everyone, to a special live edition of Arizona Crime Uncovered. We have so many cases that we have been tracking the last week. And so we wanted to do a special live edition, breaking all of them down, going in depth. We have the Allison Feldman murder trial we've been watching and the Preston Lord case. Both of them have been in court, obviously, in the last week. But then Allison Feldman, that trial is ongoing and is still in court right now. We also have two other cases that we are watching so closely, Emily Pike and Chalistia Colale. And we want to talk about all of those in one big episode. So we're going to bring in a legal expert. But first, I want to kind of break down the Allison Feldman case, give you some background so you know a little bit more about what we're talking about as we break down what is going on in court. So you might have seen our other Arizona Crime Uncovered episode on this case. And part of the reason we focused on this case is because it has been a decade since Allison Feldman was murdered inside her Scottsdale home. She was 31 years old, and the case went cold for several years, but it marked a first here in Arizona. It was the first time familial DNA was used to point law enforcement to a suspect, and that was Ian Mitchell. Now, we did have multiple delays, and that was because there was a huge battle over DNA evidence. And it wasn't regarding the familial aspect, it was how a DNA sample was obtained. And that went all the way up to the state Supreme Court. Now, that key DNA evidence, it can be used at trial, and that trial is now underway. It actually started last week. And like I said, it is ongoing right now. So we had court Monday as well as it is happening right now. We've seen police officers take the stand, Allison Feldman's boyfriend, her boss, and even her dad. So we want to play you some of what we have heard in court so that you can kind of get a sense about what we're going to talk about, and then we're going to bring in that legal expert. So let's take a listen.
Said that the home serves as more than just a physical space. It is a sanctuary where individuals seek solace, comfort, security away from the outside world, and the freedom to let their guard down. For Allison Feldman, her home, nestled in a quiet neighborhood in Scottsdale, was just that. Until the evening of February 17th, 2015. You see, that was the night when Ian Mitchell, a man unknown to Allison, made his way into her home and proceeded to violently beat, sexually assault, and strangle her to death. Sadly, on February 17th, 2015, Allison's sanctuary ultimately became the place where she would take her very last breath. And her killer, left with the daunting task of having to eliminate any evidence of having ever been inside her house. He went into Allison's master bedroom, he rummaged through her dresser drawers and a nightstand, and he went into the garage and he looked through her car parked inside. And when he was finally done, the killer left with some of Allison's jewelry, her wallet, phone, house key, and most importantly, with a large amount of cash.
But the state, they charged the wrong guy. Ian did not commit this crime. Ian is innocent. Please be patient and listen to all the evidence. You're going to hear all about him, and you're going to hear from those witnesses. And with the information they learned, they should have done more. They should have done more with him. Ian's innocent. Ian didn't kill Allison. Ian didn't sexually assault Allison. Ian didn't burglarize that house. Ian's never been there. The state charged the wrong person. And I ask you to be patient, listen to the evidence in this case. Listen to the processes that the Scottsdale Police Department took and what they did not do.
Oh my God, I just came over to my girlfriend's house and she's not breathing.
It was the most horrific smell of cleaning products I've ever smelled in my life.
You remember what part of the house she was in?
She was in a hallway.
I told myself, I was going to do two things when Allison was murdered. The first was to help the police, whoever it could, and find the perpetrator. And the second was to keep her legacy alive. And that's what I feel I'm doing here. You know, I've decided this is what I'm going to be doing. And the court meets 4 days a week, typically. A lot of vacations coming because of the holidays. And I just intend to be here. That's my task to do, and that's what I'm going to do.
You worked with the Scottsdale Police Department to get the familial DNA search, correct?
I worked with the governor and the attorney general to see if we could make it legal.
And you were kind of the person who was the catalyst for that to be used in this case. Is that correct?
Yes.
So there is a look inside of court, and obviously that was a lot. We have a lot to unpack. We want to bring in Ben Taylor, an attorney who has helped us break down a lot of different cases. And I know that was a lot for people to watch, and we want to make sure that everyone is understanding. So part of that was opening statements, and this is when we have prosecutors, we have defense attorneys, and they give kind of almost an overview of their case and what they are going to present. And obviously, we have prosecutors who are saying Ian Mitchum did this crime that he's accused of, but then we also have the defense attorneys saying, hey, you got the wrong guy. When they're talking about him, they are talking about a former Valley pharmacist that they are now pointing the finger at, which is a third-party defense. Ben, tell us what a third-party defense is. I know we're not naming this guy because he is not charged with a crime right now, but what is a third-party defense?
Ultimately, the defense attorney has done some research on this pharmacist, and they're trying to link the pharmacist to the actual murder of Allison Feldman. So a third-party defense is saying, hey, my guy, my client didn't do it. It has to be somebody else, a whole different party, a whole third party. So basically, that's their defense, that Ian Mitchum didn't do this, and that this pharmacist must have planned this out, and the pharmacist is the one who did it. So that's the third party that we're talking about here, and that's what you see the defense attorney is trying to convince the jury that it wasn't his client, Ian Mitchum, it was the third party, this pharmacist.
How hard is it to put on a defense like this? Especially, we have Scottsdale police telling us that there's no tie between the pharmacist and this crime. So how hard is it to put on a defense like this?
It's very hard because you have to actually prove that this third party, the pharmacist, was actually at the house. Was there any fingerprint evidence? Was there any DNA evidence of this pharmacist there? Is there any eyewitness evidence? The pharmacist might have known Allison Feldman, might have even met Allison Feldman a couple times, but can you prove the day and night of the murder that this pharmacist was there? So that's what the hard part the defense attorney is going to have to prove, either trying to bring in the pharmacist to court, and we understand that the pharmacist might take the Fifth Amendment, meaning not testify if they are brought into court, or have another eyewitnesses say that they saw the pharmacist at Allison Feldman's house. So that's why it makes it extremely hard. They need to have some sort of other eyewitness evidence or some sort of video camera tape planting or proving that this pharmacist, the third-party defense pharmacist, was at the scene of the crime.
And it seems like right now, according to prosecutors, they say there's no DNA from this person inside Allison's home. And another strategy that it seems like the defense team is trying to do is also poke holes in Scottsdale Police Department's investigation. That is a strategy that we see a lot, right, in these cases, trying to cast doubt on how the investigation played out.
Yes, because right now, the defense attorney and the prosecutor has to prove their case under the law beyond a reasonable doubt. So the defense attorney is trying to poke some holes and cast doubt on the case, because all it takes is just one or two jurors to be confused and say, I'm not sure that Ian Mitchum might have done this, and then you might get a hung jury. And if it's a hung jury, that's definitely a win for the defense attorney. So that's what the defense attorney is doing in their cross-examination, trying to poke holes in the police department's evidence that they gathered, and trying to devalue the whole case that the prosecution is trying to present.
Yeah, I think there's so much that leads up to a trial too that sometimes people don't see. I was in hearings where they were arguing over what would be actually admissible or brought into court. And during one of those hearings, we actually learned that the pharmacist was going to plead the fifth, like you said, and that he could do that. The judge is allowing him to do that outside of the presence of a jury. How much of a wrench does that throw in this defense team's argument, or the case that they are trying to put forward?
It does throw a wrench there, because some of the jurors might be wondering, is the pharmacist going to appear in court? Is the pharmacist going to testify? And doing it outside the presence of the jury, the drama effect is not there. When you have a witness take the stand and about to testify and they take the fifth, that is huge. And that's a big, huge win for the defense. So not having that person on the stand taking the fifth could hurt their case a little bit. However, if the defense attorney is able to tell the jury that he did take the fifth, that's going to be up to the judge whether or not the jury will even understand or even know that the pharmacist took the fifth. That can still help the defense attorney in the sense of saying that this witness took the fifth, even though they didn't take him in front of the whole jury. This witness was available to testify, but they decided not to testify.
This is also a capital case, and we have seen trial dates now that are scheduled all the way through May. Can you talk about the different phases that a capital case takes on? Because right now we have the trial. What happens after we get, some sort of consensus by the jury? It could go multiple different ways.
Yes, I've had the opportunity to try a death penalty case, and these cases take months and months because of the amount of evidence you have, the amount of witnesses you have. And this is going to go down into 2026, and it could go even longer past May, depending on if witnesses get sick or if jurors get sick. So sometimes cases get continued. So that's the reason why these cases take a long time. But in a capital case, you have the first, the guilt or innocence phase. If I Am Mitchell is found not guilty, they're done. However, if I Am Mitchell is found guilty, that means you go into the next phase where the jurors will listen to evidence from the prosecution of aggravating factors and mitigation from the defense attorney to decide whether or not I Am Mitchell gets the death penalty or whether or not he just gets life behind bars in prison.
This process is going to take quite a bit of time. And I do want to say, we've seen from prosecutors, and like I said, what was going on before we went into trial, the prosecutors insisting that this pharmacist really has nothing to do with this case. And that argument, like I said, played out even before trial happened. So now we're in the trial. We're going to wait and see here what happens. And I do want to move on to another case we're talking about, which is the Preston Lord case. So we want to switch gears to that. It's now been over 2 years since Preston Lord was attacked, beaten, leaving a Queen Creek Halloween party. He died 2 days later. We have 6 remaining defendants, and we're inching closer to that current January trial date. And those defendants, they had a court date last week. And this was kind of a time when people gave a case update. And we heard from the judge, we heard from defense attorneys. We want to take you inside court to show you some of that, because we really were only able to show a little tiny piece in our story from last week. So what you're going to see here, just to set the scene for everyone, you're going to see the defendants, 4 of them lined up. We had one who was appearing virtually and one who the judge waived their presence, Jacob Meissner, who's still in the custody of the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. So you're going to see this. You're going to see the camera move a little bit as we are getting shots of the different people that are inside the courtroom. But I want you to take a listen to what they have to say before we ask Ben some questions about this case as well.
Seen the complex case, joint case management report submitted by the parties. In general, it appears that progress is ongoing. The state believes that discovery is either largely or fully complete. The state has not made plea offers, but is receptive to defendants' request for settlement. It's largely the belief of the parties that the current trial date of January 12 is not viable.
We'll have our motion to sever filed by the deadline of November 26th. And then just for the court's understanding, we are working with the state to start getting interviews scheduled, and the parties are in contact regarding it.
So that is Talon Renner that you could see there appearing virtually. That's the final shot. He did get permission to appear virtually. Some people asking why, and I know that we heard from Judge Sam Myers at the beginning of all of this, when people request, he will most likely approve that. He approved that, and that's what you were seeing there. You also heard about a motion to sever and the deadline now being pushed back to November 26th. So I think a lot of people, Ben, who follow court or who follow trials might not know, though, what a motion to sever is. Can you explain what that is and why someone would file this?
Yes. As a defense attorney, if you have multiple clients combined in a case like the Preston Lord case, your client might be less culpable, meaning that they didn't really do what the other bad actors did. So you want to sever them away from the trial, because if you were to go to trial with everybody, even though your client might claim their innocence, the jury might convict your client based on the fact that the other defendants were acting bad and you were there. So that's why a lot of times defense attorneys want to sever their clients away and have their own separate trial. That means that the judge grants this motion, that defendant would have their own separate trial away from all the other defendants. And then the jury will decide innocence again, guilty, based upon that one defendant alone. So it's an advantage. It's a trial strategy that a lot of people do when you feel that your client might have a chance of getting a not guilty or a better plea offer if they're separated away from the other bad actors.
And we're inching closer and closer to, we have seen several trial dates. One was this summer, it got moved to January of next year. And so now people are looking at that. And I know community members, East Valley community members, have commented on my page saying, why is this taking so long? And if it gets pushed back yet again, this just seems to be taking a really long time. We were just talking about the Allison Feldman case, which is unique, of course, because we had the DNA battle going on. But that took 10 years total from the time Allison Feldman lost her life to now for it to go to trial. I obviously don't feel like we're looking at the same circumstances with this case, but these kinds of delays do happen. And if this motion to sever, if those things are granted, could that mean that it would take even longer to go to trial?
Yes. If these motions are granted, that means each and every defendant would have their own trial depending on what defense attorney filed their motion. So it would take a lot longer, Ashley, for this whole case to get wrapped up, because when you have 2 or 3 separate trials, each and every defendant would have their own trial. So it'd be interesting to see what the judge will do. The judge could deny the motion and say, no, I'm going to keep everybody together, or the judge could separate everybody. So yes, this will take a lot longer now.
Yeah. So still a lot more to come from this case. And we're going to be watching it closely as we have been. And we have a little bit more posted on this story. We have it linked in our web script from this live stream. So you can go click on that. Thank you so much, Ben, for joining us, for being a part of this conversation. I know as we break down more of these cases, we'll call you again. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Ashley.
Okay, we are going to switch gears now to 2 other cases that we have also been covering. And I do want to remind you, for people that are watching, I'm going to look again, see if we have any comments. We do have some comments. I do want to say, if there are people that have questions as I go through this next portion, I know we were focused on, talking to Ben here, but now we are going to go in and talk about the Emily Pike case and the Chalicia Colole case pretty quickly, but we really want to make sure that we are covering these cases. So first, let's talk about Emily Pike. It's been 9 months since Emily Pike was found murdered in the Globe area. She was, of course, originally reported missing from her Mesa group home. We've done a lot of coverage on this case, but it has been now 9 months, and I spoke with her uncle and aunt again. We have been trying to get information from the Gila County Sheriff's Office as I've been telling you, as we've done other live streams, so many of you ask about this process and so many of you want updates on this case in particular, and we are asking for those updates. I'm going to share with you what we have been able to learn this month, a little bit more about that process as well. But first, I want to share with you some sound that we got from Emily Pike's uncle and aunt. So this is Allred Pike Jr. and his sister, Carolyn Pike Bender. We're going to hear from them. One of their biggest concerns and their biggest focus is just making sure that this case does not go cold. We don't have anything telling us that it is at all, but of course, that is their main concern. So take a listen.
God, it gets really hard. It's really hard. And I wish there was something that I could do to help, but there isn't, because Emily is never going to be forgotten. She's never forgotten. She's always in our hearts. We think about her all the time. We love her. We always talk about her. We go back to looking at her photos, her videos. She's there every day, a memory.
I think it's part of it is building the case from where she went missing to where she was found, connecting the two locations, and where was she at in between all those days. That may have something to do with how long the investigation is taking, and sifting through all the evidence that they may have, whether physical evidence or information that's being filtered through the hotlines.
Yeah. So hearing from them, obviously they are hurting, they're so grieving, but they really are hoping for justice. So I want to let you know, we continue to reach out to the Gila County Sheriff's Office. So many of you have asked about that process, and we are continuing to ask for an interview with the sheriff and also updates in the case. We heard from you guys, and you guys had questions in the case, and I have sent a list of those questions into the Gila County Sheriff's Office. And as of now, they have not answered many of those questions. Obviously, we know this is an ongoing investigation, but I do want to read you what they did tell me. They told us they didn't have any information available for release. The investigation remains active and our team continues to pursue all leads. So that was, I believe, on November 3rd. We did do another story last Friday. I reached out to them again. We have still not heard back on that front. So we are still waiting to get an update from the Gila County Sheriff's Office again. And like I said, we continue to check in with them. We feel like it is important. We continue to ask for interviews. I know that Emily Pike, some of her family members have been supportive of if they would be able to do an interview or a press conference. And so we are asking for those kinds of things and seeing what is possible. Another case that so many of you have been commenting on as I've been sharing information is the Chalistea Colale case. So, of course, Emily Pike was a San Carlos Apache teen. Chalistea Colale, that is happening in White River, Arizona. And so we have been following this case closely as well. 16 years old, reported missing at the end of October. Her family told us she was going to stay at a friend's home and did not return. Her remains were found a week after she was reported missing. And we know this is a homicide investigation. And we have spent hours making phone calls. We have been trying to get a hold of the White Mountain Apache Police Department. We have been sending them emails, calling them, trying to get an update. We were able to hear from someone who works on a staff with the tribe and have been able to correspond a little bit with them, but we have still not heard back from the police department. We last Friday again started making a lot of phone calls because there was a lot of confusion taking place, and we were trying to get direct answers from the BIA, from the police department, and we were also corresponding with the family as well. And the BIA told us that they have not made any arrests in the case, that there is a $5,000 reward for information. But I did want to share a little bit about Chalistia, who she was, and also hear from some of the advocates that are working with her family. Then I'm going to share with you really briefly before we wrap up the episode what I have learned from the BIA today, because we did reach out once again with some more questions. So let's hear from the advocate that has been spending some time with the family, working with the family, and hear what she has to say.
Loved art and drawing and painting. She loved the outdoors. I got to see videos and photos and meet her amazing, beautiful family. It hit home because this is exactly what we're trying to prevent. We don't want any families to have to lose their loved one, especially a child. We automatically feel like, how could we have done more?
I'm sure Chalistia's family wants to know what happened here.
Absolutely. They need closure. Any family that goes through this needs closure. They need answers.
So we heard there from that advocate, and we have been following up with the BIA, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, asking questions because we are aware that there has been confusion. And I told the BIA that, sending them an email today. And I do want to read to you a little bit about what they said. They said that they have not made an arrest in this case. They are stressing that. They said investigators have received some tips and they are being followed up on as they are received, because I asked if there had been tips. And they said, due to this being an active investigation, additional details cannot be released at this time. So I want to let you guys know we are asking questions, we are following up, and we want to hear from you guys. So if you guys have questions that you feel like we should be asking, or if you want to write me, there are always ways to contact me. Facebook, we actually, our digital director set up a new way to correspond with us. So if you click on our talent pages, you should be able to communicate with us. And you know, like I said, we have so many cases we are following. So we have, like I said, Allison Feldman, Preston Lord, who, you know, we are waiting to see what happens with that case, when it will go to trial. And we have Emily Pike, Chalistia Cole. Continue to follow ABC15. Let us know how you kind of like your updates. If you like these live streams, what you would like to see, and those questions, of course. And we'll continue to follow up on these cases. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Feel free to rewatch, comment, share this, message me, and we will see you next time.